I just want to start off kind of asking how you guys met. I was kind of reading the story you told about like being in a college band together. And I think you share some heritage. So, just tell me that story.
Yeah, so it was 2013. We met at marching band camp for university. Ian is a year older than I am, so I was a freshman. He was going into sophomore year, and yeah, we both played French horn, so marching band's the mellophone, and so I don't even know how it came up, but we were talking about like making they were like, I guess they asked me, what do you like to do? And I was like, oh, I like to make music. And Ian goes, oh, I make beats too, and like takes his phone and like shows me a beat he made off of Cubase, a hip hop beat. And I was like, yeah, man, that's cool. And I was like, oh, have you ever heard of Ableton? He was like, no, no. I was like, oh, I'm gonna show you the way. And then I think like after that, the rest is history from there on out.
That's great. Yeah. You guys have kind of talked about Ableton a lot and just a bit of the obsession with it. I'm just wondering, like, once you spend years on this program, it's so second nature, but obviously it has a pretty high floor to getting in. Is there any advice that you kind of give to somebody who's learning? And then are there any pieces of hardware or plugins that you guys find you use all the time?
Um, I think that the only, just to take it a step at a time, the question, I think that the only real high ceiling floor that people don't really understand about Ableton is that there are two ways to use it. And some people choose to combine those two ways. Speaking specifically about the arrangement in the session view, live view, actually can't remember their official names, but there's basically when you hit tab on the keyboard, you flip between the mixer and what looks like a bunch of cells, and the arrangement view, which is your traditional, DAW layout, where you might typically build a track. There are a handful of people out there that will build their tracks in the live view and just record it out into the arrangement view. You can totally do that. We, honestly, I don't really use the that live view ever, unless it's just to look at the mixer. But the arrangement view, I think, is just as functional as any other DAW currently. With Ableton 11, they really, I think, went out of their way to include some industry standard features like lanes and stuff like that that weren't there in Ableton 10. I really don't think that there is a feature that Ableton now lacks, in comparison to other DAWs. So in terms of the learning curve, it definitely is not as high as it was maybe getting into Ableton 11. Just knowing where things are, I think, is even the easiest part about Ableton. Everything is a click away, realistically. The GUI is very, very self-explanatory, I think. And once you start to get a feel for where things are, and that's like a quick YouTube video away, in my opinion, you can really, really understand the program within a matter of hours. Especially if you have experience with other DAWs, it's not this, it's not like Cubase or Pro Tools. You got to sit there and look for stuff. Everything is just kind of right there. And as far as plugins go, I mean, I have a plethora of things that I use on a regular basis. Every project is different. But if I had to, off the top of my head, give some answers, probably it's going to be the Slate stuff, that Plugin Alliance, Mix and Master Bundle, and the Isotope stuff. So.
Awesome. Yeah. I'm just wondering, you guys are based in Miami. I don't know if you've been there your whole lives or majority of your lives. It's got a very vibrant scene, and I think it's just only grown over the last few years. Obviously, a lot of people from the outside just kind of think of it as like ultra, but of course, there's so much more. Could you just tell us a little bit about the scene in Miami and how that kind of influenced you guys getting into this world?
Yeah, I mean, we were both born and raised in Miami. So like our whole life has been here. Ian's been in the suburbs. I've been more in the city. So like that's the only, I think, difference between us per se. Besides that, I was mentioning to you earlier, my father was a DJ and he came from France to Miami to open up a nightclub back in 89 or 90. And that's kind of when the nightlife of Miami was like kicking off in the 80s into the 90s. And it started to slowly become the mecca of house music as it came along. It was America's say America's Ibiza for the time, since you had the beach, you go to the beach in the daytime, and then at night you go into the club until 5 in the morning, or even further. Like if you go to space, you're going to space until 11 in the morning or more, depending if you can last. But yeah, so you grow up in this whole culture of like dance music and house music and the normality of it. So it's more so, not to sound cheesy, but it's just like it's a way of life here. And you meet so many people from around the world, because Miami is really a huge hub, especially to South America and things like that. But there are plenty of Europeans. I'd say those are the two biggest hubs that come here to Miami. So you get such a mix of cultures as well. And the Latin culture, which Ian and I are both half Cuban, so we grew up with it, are heavy into partying, like having a good time. And their motto in like life is like, you work hard in the day and then you party hard at night, like to make up for the hard work you did. So it all just comes together here, on top of like the I'd say like the gay scene in Miami Beach as well, that has always been around. And gay people have always been into the coolest music and the newest things and the newest clubs. So it's just all comes together with the Latins who love to party, and they don't care your color, creed, they just want to have a good time, to Europeans coming in, and the gay people opening the clubs. It all just comes in together into one mecca. And I think that's really what makes Miami separate from a lot of cities. And I think the only closest one was New York pre 9/11, I'd say. And I mean, obviously with the work you guys are doing, you're bringing it back up to like a whole new level. But there was a good era where there was not much happening in the city for a few years, unfortunately.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's interesting. I actually was just talking with Harry Romero, who has lived in New York for, over 20 years, and he touched on that, just kind of those early 2000 years, and then leading into the EDM boom and whatever. It's like it took a dip, and the local government put a lot of laws in that made it difficult to even have these events. And we're seeing it back now in Brooklyn, but it's taken time. And I think there's a handful of venues that are doing really, really cool shows, but there's not a ton of venues that are doing it. Just wondering, for you guys, do you have a memory of the first time you ever performed, whether it was, under this project or elsewhere?
Um,
I kind of do.
yeah, no,
Again, was using Tractor at the time, and man, I think it was. This is like family parties and stuff, like aside, of course, but I think my first time was at a tailgate for the fraternity that I was in at the time. We literally just set up some, rinkety dink ass speakers, and and I had my laptop and the Tractor, and that was it. I think I DJ'd for like 6 hours straight, and it was a mission.
Yeah, for me, on a small scale, because we all started really small. I was the resident DJ at the Mondrian Hotel every Sunday when I was in high school. I was like 16 years old, and I had to burn CDs because they were the CDJ 1000s. So every Sunday I had to burn CD, write on like the notes what the tracks were on it, take a scissor, cut it, put it in the sleeve. And then I learned quickly that if there's two records you want to mix and they're on the same CD, you're screwed. So I had to learn with that, but it got me. There was no sync button on that, so I had to work my way through. And then it's been a slow, steady climb for the last 10 years, but it just gets better and better every month, I'd say, for us. So
Yeah, absolutely. You guys really started putting music out around 2017, and it was interesting because I think, for a lot of guys who are starting, it can take a while to really break through, or get noticed by, labels that matter and are run by artists, and get that kind of feedback. But almost immediately, it felt like you were getting pretty positive response, signing tracks to Nervous Records and Basement Leak. Obviously Shiba is in Miami as well. But I was just wondering kind of how you connected with those labels, and what did it feel like for you guys to just kind of have a bit of success right off the bat?
yeah, it's funny you say success off the bat. That's what in our head we thought, and then you look back years later and you go, there was nothing there. But no, we met Shiba in Miami right around the time he moved here, and I was basically like, whenever you're in the studio, let me know. I just want to sit there and be a fly on the wall. and it's what we did in a sense, and just learned and learned and learned. And then of course we kept showing him records. It took us about 5-6 tracks till he found one he liked, which was my style, and that became the first release under Black V-neck. And then even since then, it took more time. And then we sent an email to Nervous as well, and it was exciting because they're a legendary label to have some of our earliest releases on. And it's just steady climb, sending tracks to Dirtybird, and trust me, like a lot of no responses slash not hearing anything plenty of times until you finally get the one that says congratulations. So it takes time, everything, it's the process.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm just, coming off that, given you guys are kind of in the mecca of clubs, but obviously have now had the opportunity to play a lot of places. Do you have any preference when it comes to performing between, the more intimate venue, larger club, or a festival?
I really don't think that it matters to us as long as the crowd is feeling it. I mean, we've been to some places where, no matter what you do, you'll even hear after you play, yeah, the crowd loved you, everybody loved you, you killed it, but then nobody was dancing the whole night. And you're like, I guess, and there are places we go to, it may be like a 300 cap room, and maybe even only 150 people in that room for whatever reason, and it's like one of the best vibes because everybody's digging it. And it's just, I mean, I'll take that, any day over a 500,000 cap room and nobody's moving. Thankfully I don't think we've actually run into that issue in larger rooms, but definitely we prefer when when we can get the crowd to how do you say, kind of like vibe with us, and we can get them to interact.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's so fickle. I've seen, at the Brooklyn Mirage, 5,000 people. And I actually kind of noticed this this past weekend. We had the Diplo Higher Ground thing, and
Jay wore a photo.
yeah, man, she was dope. But she it was interesting because he's done an amazing job building that brand out, and that shows in that we sold out 5,000 people shows in one day there. But it's like Diplo comes on and it still kind of feels like half the people like have no idea what they're doing there. And it's like I'm watching him do his thing, and he's awesome. And it's like a big portion of the crowd either doesn't really understand what Higher Ground is, or they're just there because of the name. And you could see it. And I think that the night event probably went a little bit more high energy, but it's just, I think it just goes to show, like, even the biggest artists in the world can have that experience still. As you mentioned, just sending demos over and over. The Mouth Music EP dropped in 2019, and obviously it felt like this kind of put you guys on the map a little more. I was reading one of your interviews where you said you used some like Brazilian trap samples to formulate the vocal lead on the track. Could you just tell us kind of the story in the studio of creating this one? And when you made it, did you know like this is a Dirtybird record, or did you send it around?
Oh man, I think I hated the crap out of that record when it was done, and I was like, this is never going to go anywhere. And then it ended up in the freaking bottom of our promo list. Like, I don't know, but yeah, I think Julian can probably tell a better story about the studio time.
Yeah, I remember finding those vocals, and I thought they were super cool, and there was so many of them because you find them in a row in a sense, and there were so many variations and things. And I thought, I just had a concept. I was like, oh, how cool would it be? It's like you kick off the track with like one vocal, and then the next one's the next vocal, and the next one's the next vocal, and it kind of just keeps like with just different things. So every drop is a whole different rhythm and vocal going on. And so I remember Ian came in and I was like, yo, I have this idea here. I already laid out something. He goes, not bad. Let me just rework the bass line. I think that this is like off here, boom, 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 fixes the notes. And obviously we put the sound in together at the end. And like, exactly like Ian said, we made it. And we're like, all right, what do we do with this record? Like, this isn't a record clear cut for anybody. So time goes on, and I was like, all right, well, time to send records to Dirtybird because we have a batch of records, and let's see. And that was the 5th record out of 5 records. So I remember I put it on the bottom. It might get shuffled by the time I sent it, but it was like the last track out of the 5 tracks I submitted, and that's the one they took. And I was like, okay, like it was awesome. It was our first, well, technically our second Dirtybird release, but first like official one on the main label. And then they asked for a B-side, and very similar story with Sex Drugs. We sent them 3 or 4 more records, with Sex Drugs being the one on the bottom. Like, oh, they're not going to take that because of like the lyrics and stuff. And then they're like, yeah, we'll take this one. So it's always the ones you least expect that I think Von Stroke is going to take. And that's advice for all the guys who are producing and wants to get on Dirtybird.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, those are obviously like they're such unique tracks, and I mean, he's just like every time they put a song out, I'm just like, oh, that's even funkier than the last one that I heard. You just mentioned kind of the flow between the two of you guys. Is that typical when you're producing a track, or what's the process like when you're getting in the studio together?
I mean, it just depends really. Like sometimes he'll start an idea, sometimes I will. I mean, there have been tracks that he will finish, do start to finish because he's inspired, and vice versa. I think, man, I think might have been one of those that I just knocked out in a weekend because I heard the vocal sample and did it. And then he's done, a few others. I can't remember the names off the top of my head, but yeah, it really just depends on what we're feeling.
And when you're performing, I think it's something I just like to ask anybody that's a duo. Do you guys have to do some preparation before, and just because it's like you're going back to back, or is it you're so on the same page musically that you don't have to think about it too much?
No,
We're definitely on the same page, but I think really the only bit of preparation is just I stand on the left CDJ and he stands on the right.
we also, I mean, we always get together before the show at the hotel room and go over, like in a sense, I say the playlist of the night. So like a lot of the new records and things, and so like that we're on the same page of what we're feeling and what we're not. So somebody doesn't drop a track that we feel is gonna not do well, since we both have different tastes, and you have to accept that, embrace that, and then use that to your advantage to be like, no, this is not good, or I think this is worth the risk, or vice versa, and then we put it together in that sense. But then once you're there, there's different vibes in the rooms and things, and we'll just tell each other, hey, I think this is the direction that the set needs to go in, and then we'll start digging in the USB from there and keep it going.
Do you ever find that there's like pressure to, especially now kind of coming off a period where I'm sure you're playing a lot of shows, but you also just spent a year probably producing a lot of music because there were no shows. Is there pressure to just like be playing a ton of your own music, or, just to kind of get crowd reactions? Or do you find that you're still able to just go out there and hammer whatever you want?
Pressure? No, I don't think so. I think we just end up playing our records because they just tend to work in our sets, and we make the stuff we like. We make the stuff that we would want to hear live. So at the end of the day, they just happen to find their way in our sets regardless, and then we will play records that we think fit the style or the vibe, or that we really like. Yeah, just really depends.
There's a certain, I definitely think, and I think our fans can testify this for us. There's a certain vibe that we look for in our set, and it's like this. I don't even know how to explain it. Is the funny thing, and I know what I'm looking for, but I have no clue how to explain it. But it's like a fast moving pace with a bass line that's grooving. And it sounds terrible the way I explained it, but it's like what you're looking for in the Black Phoenix set. And there's tracks that we like, but sometimes they just don't have the groove that we're looking for, that we want to, give to people, that blend in not only with our, I guess like with our records as well. So to keep the momentum going, since we're trying to tell a story in our set.
They just need to drive. Like they need to have this drive, this sense of moving forward, of excitement. The tracks really can't get stale. But yeah, I mean, like I said, if they match the energy that the tracks that our own tracks that we're playing, then normally it's already going to be a pretty good fit, especially if we like the record, of course.
I think the worst part is there's a lot of music we like, and we usually do up to 2.5 hour sets, just because It's the time that the promoters have allotted us, and then the club closes, or they're like, oh, that's it, or there's a person after us. So I'm not going to be like, hey man, please don't play, I want to keep going. So there's a lot of records, unfortunately, that we really love and that we would love to just play out and give a longer set and a bigger story, but we just don't get that opportunity sometimes.
Yeah, I hear that. I think it's tough. I mean, especially when you're thinking about the festival sets where it's like you have 60 minutes and it's a firm 60 minutes, and
Yeah.
like, you know,
And you got to play that last record. You're like, this record has to be in the set. And
Absolutely. I wanted to ask about Ernesto, who is somebody you guys have collaborated with a lot and I think is just making really cool music. What's the relationship like and how'd you guys meet?
So Ernesto, he was doing a party at Coyo Taco. For those of you who don't know, in Miami, Coyo Taco is a taco restaurant in the front, and in the back there's a little dark black room, but with some mega speakers in there. And Oscar G plays there every Monday. And Ernesto had a party. I think it was Thursday nights, like once a month, and he would bring in like Tim Baresco, Clyde P. I think maybe one of the Aminej and Dance guys, Sharon J. So like these type of G house artists, especially because this was 2017, so a little bit more G house. And so we were going to the parties, and then we made friends with him like that and started sharing our music. And he was actually the first person to ever book us to ever do a Black V-neck show, period. And that was at Coyo Taco. And I remember the first time we did it, there was, because we just started the project, there was maybe 15 people in the whole room. Shiba San being one of them, at least, who came out to support. And then the second time we did it, we had a full room, which was cool. But yeah, Ernesto is the guy who gave us our first ever Black V-neck show, courtesy of Ernesto.
Wow. Well, I'll just say, if anybody, when you're listening to this and you're in Miami, go to Coyo Taco because that place is fucking awesome. Anytime I'm in Miami, like it's like you have to go by just for the vibes. You know, it seems like in this year, you guys have had the opportunity to release some music that's, you know, a little different than maybe what we would normally associate with your sound. I think whether it was like Some Love, Restless, the recent remix with Afrojack. Do you feel like this is kind of an intentional direction shift, or has it just been some interesting opportunities that have come up?
It's both for sure. I think that the older we get and the more, you know, mature, I guess, our brand becomes, the more we realize that like we just want to make what we want to make, and if we like it, we're gonna do it. And I don't really think that we should be, you know, limited to, you know, any one type of sound. We're gonna keep making what we like, and that's not to say that, you know, we're not gonna make the club bangers. Like we just want to diversify ourselves and be as eclectic as we possibly can while still kind of fitting into our, you know, into our brand. So I definitely would say that, you know, you can expect more of this type of stuff from us, but also don't think that, you know, it's because we don't want to do the other stuff anymore. You know, I personally love the shit out of club bangers. I live for that, but it's nice to change the pace every once in a while.
Yeah, I think the best way to put it, because even my booker asked me the same question. He said, a promoter was asking me, are you guys going this way or that way? I was like, listen, we make house music, period. Yeah. If it's underground, if you think it's underground, it's underground. If we're on underground labels, cool. If we make something commercial, it's commercial, cool. Whatever you want to think, it's house music at the end of the day. We don't do techno. We don't do dubstep. You know, we don't do like all the other, you know, things. At the end of the day, we do house music, and that's it.
I think that's a good way to say it. I mean, it's interesting because even, you know, like listening to the remix with Afrojack, like it obviously has a different feel to it, but it's certainly still a house track. And I have to follow up on that. I mean, how did that one come up, and what was that like, kind of working with somebody like that?
He's the man, the legend. It was crazy. I think there were a lot of versions, a lot of revisions, of course, because, you know, when you're working with somebody like him, he's you know, put out a certain level and standard of music for so long. You got to make sure to achieve it. And we learned a lot. I learned a lot, especially on the engineering side. You know, but I think that sorry, the other part of the question was how did it come about, right? He basically just asked us. I mean, we have a working relationship with him, and he kind of helps us out, you know, here and there. Not to get too specific or anything, but he kind of approached us with the opportunity, and couldn't say no to that. So
Yeah, he reached out to us. I think it was January 2020 through a DM on Instagram, and it was, "Hey, I'm a big fan of your music." And for us, we're a big fan of his music, being from Miami, and his sound was huge in the Dutch house scene. And so, yeah, it was because of Mouth Music is what got him onto us. And then we just kept talking, and since then built a working relationship, and definitely learned a lot of things because of him. And like Ian said, he reached out to us for this. And just to give you like the exclusive, we also have an original collab with him that's going to come out very, very soon. So we're excited for that as well.
That's awesome. Well, I'm glad you said it because that just totally prompts my next question. First of all, that's great. He's an absolute legend, so we'll keep an eye out for that. You're coming off two pretty huge tracks right now, that remix and C2 Sabe, which I think you guys posted, but I mean, like Snake and Mala have been playing that everywhere. I definitely heard it at Electric Zoo a couple different times over the weekend. It seems like you guys are getting booked for a lot of festivals, big things to come, hopefully. What's in store for you guys for the rest of the year musically? And is there kind of anything that you're setting as a goal, for the next couple of years?
To continue to be able to live off of music. I think if I can continue to do that, I'll be a happy camper. Man, I don't know. Keep making music, keep releasing music, keep building our studio. Yeah, that's, at least for me, that's my goal.
Yeah, I mean, I think for Black V-neck as a whole, I think we want, I think the big thing at the end of the day, if we boiled everything down, it's we want more fans. The only way to do it is by making better music, every time. So we're just trying to get better and things that are going to catch people onto us more, and just build a big fan base. And that's it, because once you have a solid fan base, you can do anything you want.
Absolutely. Well, listen, that's all I got, but I just wanted to say thank you guys for coming on. Big fan, been following you for a while, and we're definitely going to work on getting you guys up to New York sometime soon, and we'll be keeping an eye out for that Afrojack collab. I'm sure it's going to be huge.
Thank you
Awesome.
for having us.
Yeah,
awesome.
thank you so much.
You guys have a good one.
You too.
Take care, brother. Have a great one.
See ya.